thank you for joining us. We are going to do beautiful feather bowls. Now, as you can see, there are two cameras here. So, hi Joe. You get this bird's eye view of what I'm doing. So I'm going to paint along with you guys. And then there's one of my face as well. But we've got Pip there too. Oh, there we go. Hi. We've got Pip here too, and she's on hand to help out with anything. So whenever I'm doing my kind of spiel, if you need anything, just pop it on the chat at the bottom and Pip will be able to answer. But if not, there's only a small group of us tonight, so we'll be able to talk things through as we go. So I believe all of you have painted with us before, so we all know like the basics of the glazes that we're using. But this evening we are going to change and break the rules a little bit. Our normal rules with pottery painting is that you have to do your lightest colours first, and then you put your dark colours over the top. If you don't do that, the dark colours come on through. However, tonight we want to do that. We want to get all of our colours on first, and then we're going to cover it in white glaze. And what it's going to do is allow all of the beautiful feathers to come through, but not the rest of the mess that we're going to make as we're painting these. So this is what we're aiming for. Now you all chose different colours. So I did the mock-up design in the blues, so you can see it kind of coming in there. And then I've got my 3 blues on the top. This one was a little bit too pale when I did the mock-up. So actually what I've done with the blues is I've given you a slightly different blue, so you guys aren't going to end up with patches that look like there's no feather there at all. Really, really close up, you can just about see that there was a feather mark, but I was a bit disappointed, and I think it will come out better with the other blue that I've put in your packs. Those of you that have got the pinks and purples, this is the kind of thing that you're going to be getting at the end. And then those of you with the greens, we've got this one here. Now I've got 2 boys and they both want a pot each. So one of them picked blue, so this is going to him, and the other one wanted green. So tonight's one I'm going to paint in green. But what I'll do is I'll try and remember everyone's colours so that I can kind of guide you a little bit as to which one to do there. But when we are painting with our pottery, we've got 3 different colour pots. So you guys will have either a light green, a medium green and a dark green, or you're going to have a pink, a light purple and a dark purple, or you're going to have light, medium and dark blue. Now they're really obvious which ones they are. You'll also have 2 pots that have FN001 written on the top. We're going to put those to the side because we don't need those straight away. We're going to start with your colours. But before we do any of that, we need to think about prepping our feathers. Now in your bags, I gave you lots of colourful feathers and then these slightly stiffer white feathers. Now personally, I prefer to use these ones. I find that they give us a really, really nice finish, and they're a little bit softer, a bit more malleable. We can sink them into the glaze a lot better. However, don't disregard these because they are a bit harder. They hold their shape a little bit more. What you might need to do is grab a pair of scissors, because when we sink these, this stalk is too strong and it will lift the feather off the pot. What I did with ours is when I used these, I popped them on the edge rather than the full feather, and then it didn't matter that that bit was there because it wasn't going to cause any issues there. But what we're doing first is we're going to start prepping our feathers. Now, when you find a feather, they're normally beautiful and you spend ages putting them all back together. What we need to do today is almost destroy our feathers. The more we mess them up now, the better it's going to look when it's done. Now, I tried to show you on this one here that this feather doesn't have a lot of breakup on it. So it looks more like a kind of solid green, especially down this side here. It just kind of kept its own shape. But the more you pull back all of your, what are they called? Are they fronds? I don't know. All the feathery bits of your feather, the more you like kind of destroy it now, the better it will look later on once it's gone through this process. Again, this one here shows it really, really well. If you don't do this bit, what you're going to do is end up with like banana shaped blocked colours. So you're going to want to really mess up your feathers first. So I think probably we will start with the lids just because it's going to be a bit easier. These will get a little bit more fiddly. But you're just going to choose your feather, and with your bowl of water, just put your thumb and your forefinger into your water and then make the feather wet, starting at the top And then if you hold it and pull it back against itself like this, you'll find that you can split it all up and you end up with this slightly more rect looking feather. As I say, the more rect it is now, the better it's going to look when it gets sunk into the glaze. These are really fluffy, so if the fluffy bits are annoying you, just make them wet too and work your way down. So we're going to do this to quite a few feathers. Now, with the lid of the demo one I did, I had 4 feathers on the top, but then you can put as many or as few on as you want to. Now, what you don't want to do is overlap all of your feathers, because if they're all overlapped, then you're going to lose some of the beauty of the unique feather print. So when we're planning these, just have a little think about roughly where your feathers are going to go, and then work out how many you need. So I'm just going to roughly put that there so I know that covers that space, and I'll probably get another one in here and maybe one in here, and then I'll see if I want to add a little bit of an edge there at all. So spend a bit of time at the moment just destroying some feathers. Just get them all kind of wet, soggy, pull them all back, and then have them all laid out on your desk. I put lots and lots of feathers in your bag, so they'll be going everywhere as well, because they're really, really light and fluffy, these ones. So they tend to, you breathe hard, they'll fall off the table. If you find that you have got really hard stalks on some of them, you will just want to cut them a bit shorter. We did a similar technique a few years back with some bowls, and they came out beautifully. But what we did find is if you have this really kind of stiff stalk just here, it doesn't sink into the glaze. So when we finally put the white on over the top, it bleeds underneath. Now, it won't ruin it, but it does just mean that you get more white on there, you'll lose some of your colour. So I tend to come in with my scissors and just cut a chunk off, and then now I have a feather that would sit pretty flat on my pottery. So if you're all happy just to sit and destroy some feathers, that would be great. Really squeaky, mine. I don't know if you can hear it, but they're squeaking away.
Oh, I don't want to. I like the fluffy bits. Oh.
Are you all right, Lynn?
Yes, thank you. You know me, I don't like to do as I'm told.
Oh, surely not. So if you don't squash down the fluffy bits, when you come to paint, they'll just be in the way. So I might have got the wrong end of the stick with you saying you like the fluffy bits, but you need to get them as wet and as spread out as you can. Some of these really do curl. There's quite a curl on that, so I might find that's going to really struggle to sit down. However, the outside of your bowl has a curve on it, so we may be able to use the kind of wrong way round, actually, the way I'm going to tell you not to use it on the top, but we'll see how we go. The reason why we do all of this prep work now is that when we start to paint, we're going to slap paint onto these pots. We're not going to do delicate painting. We're not doing pretty painting. We are loading our brush and we are going to slap it onto the pots, because what we need to do is make a feather sandwich. We want nice thick glaze underneath. We want to pop the feathers into the top of it, and then we're going to pop some more glaze over the top. And that way the feather will act as a beautiful mask, so it will stop that white glaze going through. It's not going to work if you're really, really gentle and tentative with your coats, so but we'll keep an eye as you go.
What are we doing with the white ones?
I can't remember what she said.
Christine.
So, yeah, with the white ones, so I like them, but they're quite a stiff feather, but they give a really pretty kind of finish. So what I've done here is I've just chopped the top end off. So I went about halfway through and just cut it, and then I pulled it all back. What it does is it just gets rid of this really, really, really thick stalk that's here. It's almost like a straw actually, and that's going to be really hard. It's hard to bend, let alone paint over the top and kind of have it like that. So just go in kind of halfway down, cut it off, get rid of the sticky end, and then you can do the same kind of thing. And actually these break up beautifully. This is kind of how I would imagine a feather.
How many feathers are we meant to be doing?
Well, I gave you loads. I have so far done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've done 13. So what I want to do is have enough so that when we start slapping paint, we're then not going, oh, I need more, and then trying to do that because then your paint will dry. So you're better off with more than less, but you probably don't need to do all of them that are in there. However, when you start painting, so when I did this bit, I used the kind of top end of the feathers. If you decided you wanted to add more feathering in here, because there's actually quite a lot of space going around this base that could have more feathers in, then you need to have them ready as an option to use. So yeah, just kind of bear that in mind.
Can you put one in the middle, inside?
Well, I didn't, but yeah, why not? Go for it. What I was going to say is I made a mess on the inside of mine. So if we end up getting fingerprints and things and you want it to be white on the inside, we'll just clean that off at the end. But the other thing I was thinking is we could just do a bit of a wash on the inside if you wanted to bring some of that colour through. The same on the inside of the lid, you could definitely put a feather in there once you get going, but we'll concentrate initially on the top of the lid and the outside, and then, yeah, you can go for it. You can do whatever you'd like to do on there. So I'm just positioning a few on the lid of my pot, and I think I'm just going to have 3. So it's hard to see that one because it's a little white one, but I've got my yellow one coming across here. Now it doesn't matter what colour feather you're using, that won't have anything to do with the finish. But I've got my nice big blue one coming in there, I've got a yellow one there, and then a little crisp white one in at the side. To me, that's going to be enough because there will be enough colour and white that's coming on through in between that will mean that each one is visible. Okay.
We're supposed to be putting them on there.
We can do, yeah.
You just want to kind of prop them on there just to see how many you've got.
They're not flat.
They will be flat eventually.
How are we all getting on with those? Okay, so I don't know the proper feather terminology, but a feather will curve one way. And when you look at it when it's curving, the inside of that curve has a higher ridge on this stalk than the outside. So with that in mind, if you have the outside of the curve against your pottery, it will want to flatten down and it will sit really nicely in the glaze. If you do it the other way, it will flatten, but that big ridge there will stick up and it will stop it. There will be glaze that can get underneath, basically. But it's your choice. It won't ruin this. You can't really get a feather the wrong way around. And I genuinely think the more we do these, especially if we're going for these bigger ones around the edge, having it with the kind of ridge closer to the pottery is actually going to be better because this automatically just wants to sit and follow the curve going around there. So that would work really, really well. But basically, when we're going to get going with these, we're going to start with the lid. We're just going to move our extra feathers just to the side so we're not all going to get in a big mess. I'm just going to move some of these out of the way. And I'm just going to open my pots of colour. So I've got my light colour and then my medium colour and my darker colour. Now, when we start with these, we don't want to mix these colours up because they will end up some sort of murky version of what they're supposed to be. But we're going to start with a fully loaded brush of glaze. So you've got these lovely fan brushes. We need to dip them in our water, so they're loaded with water, and then mix it into our lightest colour, just so that light colour has got a brush full of water in there, and then it's got lots and lots of glaze. Now what I'm going to do is just show you the first one. So this is a fully loaded brush, almost about to drip. And I'm not going to do any brushing like this. I'm just going to tap it onto this pottery. And tap, 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 tap. So that's not going to run, but you can see that there is a thickness to that glaze that is much thicker than we would normally paint with. Okay, so we're going to tap, 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 and then pop your paintbrush down, and then get your feather. I need like a third arm. I'm going to get your feather and make sure it's nice and kind of destroyed, and we're just going to lay it down in that glaze. Now if it's not quite doing what you want it to do, you pop your finger in there, squish it down, get it to do what you need it to do, kind of have it where you want it. If it's still not going, pop your finger back in your glaze and just squish it a little bit more. Now these white ones, as I say, they are the stiffer of the set of feathers. I don't know if you can see there, but that whole edge isn't sticking down on mine. But I like the way this end looks, so I'm going to go with it and just see how it comes out when it's finished. I'm just spreading those out there. Now I don't want the whole thing to be this light green, so what I'm going to do is just get the excess off of my paintbrush by wiping it on the pot, and then without cleaning it, I'm just going to dip into the medium green, and I'm going to do the same, tap, 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 tap. I'm going to tap it on there. I want enough glaze that it's going to act as a glue. So this needs to be a glue for my feather. So down it goes. And then the same thing with this. If there's not enough glaze, it won't want to stick. So just get some glaze on your finger, start spreading it about, stick it down. I'm trying to show you guys on here as well. There we go. And spread those kind of feathery bristles out. So this bit here is sticking beautifully. This isn't doing so well, but it's going to be fine, so don't worry too much. It's very hard to get this completely perfect. Some of them will stick better than others, but you're just going to spend a bit of time making sure they're well and truly stuck. What I'm doing with this one is I'm going round with a finger full of the same glaze that I was using, and I'm just smearing it over the top to really stick those bits down. And then I'm going to stop, same paintbrush, I'm not going to wash it, I'm going to go into the darker colour, and I'm just going to slap a bit of that colour on there. And then you want it to overlap a bit, you don't want it to be that there's any bits left. You could, if you wanted to, like on mine, I've got this white patch, so I might come back to my medium green. I'm just going to tap that in there, and then that's ready for my last feather to be sunk in.
Okay.
I'm going to have to put it down like that because I'm running out of hands. So there is no finesse to this. This is not our beautiful painting that we normally do. We're kind of bringing out our inner toddler with slapping the glaze on. Now, if you don't slap the glaze on, it's not going to be thick enough to hold those feathers down because the feathers want to peel off again. They don't want to sit there. But basically, this is the kind of thing that you're aiming for once it's done. Which one are we on? Top one. So they're just kind of squished in there. There's lots of glaze going on over the top, and they're all squashed down. That's what we're going to do. The lid is then done. So once we're at that stage, we're just going to put that aside. So the bits that are all fluffy around the edge aren't on the lid anyway, so I'm more worried about all of the pieces that are coming in here. So I've made sure they're really well stuck down with glaze. This isn't thick enough to run, but there's definitely some glaze there. So you just need to make sure that it's not too thick, but you can kind of move it around over the top of these just to make sure that they're well and truly covered. As I say, we're aiming for a feather sandwich. We want a feathery glaze sandwich. And then you can move the lid to the side. It does go everywhere. It is completely washable. If you get it on your work surface, on your tables, on your clothes, it will all just come off. So don't worry about that. You can either get a cloth for your fingers or just rub it until it's dry. It will dry a chalky finish.
We're making a glaze sandwich. How many more times?
Well, I wasn't. I was concentrating.
Not listening, Lynn.
He's not listening.
So it's really hard to
Listen.
paint by slapping the glaze on. So what we're actually doing here is getting at least 3 layers on in one thing. So you just want to slap your paintbrush against the pottery, slap, 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 make it nice and thick, in it goes. So you don't want to hold back. And the reason why we don't wash the paintbrush is because we want to get this kind of finish coming in. So I don't know if you can see it on this one here, but we've got the light green and we've got dark green kind of coming in on its tips. And then let's show you one of the blue ones. We've got it's really bad, the light in here. We've got this lovely dark blue feather here, but it's got light blue tips because it's not in a specific section. You're not doing a pink section and laying a feather. You're not doing a green, a purple section and laying a feather. It will kind of cross over. So you just want to make sure you've got that kind of mix up of your colours without it being brown. So
What are we doing about the rim?
So when we have finished, as in we're peeling off, we can touch them up. On this one, I didn't do anything with it other than do a lighter blue that went around the edge. So once I'd peeled all of these off, I did a lighter blue. Now what you can do, if you're feeling confident enough, is if you've got a space like mine, I've got the feather up there, I've got nothing here, slap some more colour on, try and stick a feather on the side, make it so that it's the side rim has got a feather too. So it would work really well actually once it's with its pot. Let me show you. So this doesn't look bad that it's not got feathers at the side, but actually if you had a feather on this rim, it's a thick enough rim that it would carry it off quite well. So yeah, by all means, if you feel brave, go for it. Go for some side feathers too. I would recommend, if you're doing side feathers, to have your feathers coming up so that you can still put your lid down while it dries with a feather bit sticking up like that. If you go the other way, you'll struggle. When you put your lid down, it will try to peel the feather off. Up or along. I want to do that now, Charlie. I want feathers on the side. If you do try and do that around the edge, you'll end up with a bit on this kind of inner lip that's underneath. Don't worry too much about that. That will be easier to paint once all the feathers are off, so we can add some colour to that towards the end. How are you all getting on? Are they sticking well? Brilliant. Nice. What I love about this is it ends up looking really crazy before it looks beautiful. Now I know Angela's done these before, so she knows that, and Georgia actually, she knows that there is light at the end of the tunnel when you're making such a mess, but I promise you these will look fab when you peel these off. At the moment they look really crazy and it's hard to believe that it's going to work, but persevere, because when we peel them off, they look
Oh,
really...
water there.
So because we added 3 colours onto our paintbrush and they are starting to merge, I would wash out your paintbrush now before you start doing the main body of the pot. So just rinse all that colour off. Even though we're going to do the same technique again, what we don't want to do is truly mix these colours so that they become too blended or different versions of what they're supposed to be.
No, because don't help them puff because you blow it away.
Blow your feathers away.
Yeah.
Like some more feathers, 'cause I don't have a lot left. Stop putting on my dog. Yeah, look, she's gone to bed now.
Okay, so now you've started with the lid, you'll see roughly how many feathers you've got left. If you want to add more to your feather collection, by all means do. Start destroying them. We're going to work on the edge of the pot itself. If you then want to go on to doing the inside or the inside of the lid or anything else, that is absolutely fine. But at the moment, we're going to work on the edge, and it's going to be the same technique. So you're just going to... I'm going to start with the darker one. So with this dark green, and I'm just slapping it on there. Now I don't want it all to be the same, so I'm going to dip into my kind of medium green. I'm just going to put that over the top. So then I've got this kind of two-tone effect coming through. Now, when you are doing this with your pinks and purples, if any of you have got those, I'm sure I did a few sets of them. The pink and the purple, the pink and the light purple look like they're the wrong way around. I promise you I've given them the right way. So just be aware that when you put them all on today, they're going to look very, very similar. But there is a difference in all of these colours that you've got. So when they're fired, they will really stand out. Now, this curves beautifully, this one. So I'm just going to go for it straight in there. It will be harder to get this stalk to stick. If it's really causing an issue once it's on, you can always lift it up a little bit, chop it off, get rid of that bit. Any bits of feather like this, if you can pick the worst of it off, but don't worry because these tiny little fuzzy bits will burn away in the kiln. But the same thing's going to happen. So you're going to add your colours, but making sure that you've definitely got a kind of blend of colours in the sense that you can see the different colours coming through. If you don't do that, it will still work, but you will have a very segmented pot. There will be one colour, another colour, another colour. Whereas if you do it like this, you kind of allow it to blend a bit more. It will really stand out with those colours when they're done. And what I'm doing is just spending a bit of time squishing this down. I'm changing the colour on my finger each time, just so I'm not kind of making it all the same. I just want all of these bits to really, really stick. If they don't, then the white that's going over the top is just going to bleed underneath. And because these are so fine, you will lose any design. So if you see that little bit there, it's such a thin little line of feather that I really want to make sure that it's stuck well in that green colour before I paint any white over the top. Otherwise I'm going to lose that feather there. So if you go sideways, this is what you're going to see. So it still looks like a feather, but a lot of the edge has gone. So just be aware of that when you're doing the side. You may want to get a few that are coming up like that so that they really do look like a feather, because sideways, this could look like anything. It's not the full feather, so you might lose that effect. So just be aware of where they're going. You can have them really close together. You can go further apart, whatever works for you. Now you'll see on here that I went a bit mad because I ended up cutting some of my feather off, but this is starting to dry. There's only a few shiny bits there. So what I'm going to do is just add a little bit more glaze onto my brush and just tap over the top just to make sure that that is wet enough to take this feather now. And then I'm going to come up from the bottom and stick the feather on there. And the same thing again, just pushing it around with my finger. I can just make sure it goes exactly where I want it to. You know, I want it to look like this beautiful kind of splayed feather rather than a solid block. And then once that's in, you can then move your way around. Now, I've done what I said earlier not to do. Have your feathers, so this one, I'll be finding it really hard to put that down on the table when it dries. What you can do if you've got quite a big overhang is hold on to it there. Again, come in with your scissors, snip that bottom bit off, and then you'll be able to put it down on the table. So just be aware of where your feathers are going. The blessing with the colourful ones is that you're not going to lose these under all of your glaze. The white ones become a little bit tricky when you come to pull them all off. So if you're using lots of little bits of the white one, do be aware of where they're going before we start doing the white layer. But other than that, just keep going, keep sticking your feathers. The base is quite a nice one as well. You might be able to get a really lovely kind of broken feather, one solid one perhaps on the base. You're very welcome to do that too as you're working your way around. Again, I'm going to just keep going with mine, but if you've got any questions at all, just say, because we're right here to help if you need. What I've done here is just added the dark and the light depending on each side of my paintbrush. So I dipped one in and then I dipped the other side in and then I went down, and it means I've got that kind of two-tone green coming in there. You can then always come over the top with your lighter colour and just add a bit of that too, and then you get really beautiful patterns when these are fired.
So I'm able to spy on everybody and they're looking good. But Lynn and Charlie, is that working for you? I just can't see your pots. Here, we can spotlight them. You can show them off.
Brilliant.
Yeah, excellent. Have you got loads of glaze on there, Charlie? You were just a bit out of focus, but yeah, perfect. It's all about harnessing your inner toddler and really slapping this on and getting loads of juicy bits of glaze coming in there.
If you find that all of your colours are blending a bit too much, just wash out your paintbrush and then go for it again. At the moment, mine's working okay, but I know that that can happen very easily. So just, just kind of hold back, wash it out, and then go again. Oh, it wasn't my doggies this time. It's normally mine that are misbehaving. Trying to join in Zoom. I keep catching the overhang of feather on mine, so I'm just snipping them off, because then it means that when I'm moving my hand around the pot, I'm not taking them away. So again, you can do that if you're struggling with those bits that are sticking out over the edge. There's like bits of feather floating everywhere. Okay, so I've made it all the way around my bowl now. I've not done the base yet, but just the next thing you're going to do is once you've gone all the way around, you'll see that it's obviously started to dry. I'm going to try and get this nice and close and then in focus if it will. I don't know if it's going to. There we go. This bit here, where my finger is there's quite a gap. I'm trying to get it to focus. It's quite a gap underneath there. And also on these bits here, it's very hard for you to see, but I would like that covered more. I think there's going to be a bit of kind of bleeding underneath. So I'm just going to load up that light colour that's underneath. I'm just going to smear it back over the top because I just want to make sure that that is fully sealed. Now, we don't want so much glaze on here that we're going to find that these crawl when they're fired, because we still add our dipping glaze over the top of these. But you just want to make sure that this feather is well and truly coated and it's not going to go anywhere. You might not have to do it to every one. This one here, I'm really, really happy with. It's just a matter of walking, like kind of turning it round and going around it. This one here is lifting up, so I'm just going to dip into that darker colour and just smear over the top of those odd few bits that just aren't quite sticking down. So that's what you need to do. Work your way around your pot once they're all stuck on, and just add those little bits over the top, just to make sure that these feathers are well and truly stuck down.
Chip in my pot. Hmm? There's a chip in my pot. Oh no. Oh, I can't remember what colour I was using. Doesn't matter. Oh no, it doesn't really. But...
What colour is yours, Lynn?
Blue.
Oh, it's blues.
Mine's purple.
Nice. So yours is the same with that pink. The pink looks purple and the light purple looks pinker.
Yeah.
But it isn't. It is the other way round. So that's 13 and 95. It's always a tricky one in the studio. But they come out really, really well, those on there. I did use all of the feathers that I prepped, but I would like to add one to the bottom of my pot. So I'm just going to bust up another feather, and then I'm going to turn my pot over and do this bottom bit, because I think that just really pays to have a nice big feather under there. So I'm just going to slap some glaze on there.
Are you going to be footing these, or are you stilting them?
So it can be either or. If your feathers are going over that rim, I will stilt them because I'll keep your pattern. But if you haven't done anything on the base, I'll foot them.
Okay, thank you.
Is that helpful? It was a bit of a, I don't know yet.
No, that's fine.
So yeah, if your feather is
That's
over,
fine.
I'm not going to wipe it off. So yeah, I'll have a little look at them when they come in and decide from there. I'm very happy to stilt these though. They're nice solid pots, so that's no problem.
Okay.
So then we're going to put that aside and let it dry. So once you guys have done the same, you'll just be able to move it over and let that one dry. Easier said than done. I'll put it on its head. And then your lid can come back into play when you guys have all caught up.
You meant to be doing it. Whatever you like. You don't have to do the bottom. Don't want to.
I just realised I've left my cup of tea downstairs.
Oh, you need to go and get it. Mine's going cold.
I'll do that.
I'll stop them having a riot. Don't you worry.
Are you going to start talking again? Because we need the video.
No, I'll wait for a bit.
Okay, just wait. I just need to go get it.
Oh, she's gone.
You ran off to get a cup of tea.
Remember. So if we want to do one in the middle, Christina,
Yes.
inside, can we just do like any of the glazes and then just stick it down and put a second coat on? As the outside?
Any of the other colours that you've got at home, or any of your colours that
No, any of these three.
Yeah, go for it. Whatever you want to do. So when I did the bottom of my pot, I actually used all three of my greens. I went in the light one, then I dipped in the middle, and then I did a bit of the dark, and I just slapped it all on. So yeah, you can do a bit of that if you want to.
Oh right, okay. Yeah, no, I don't know whether to do the bottom or the.
It depends on. Yeah, I mean, you could do both. I don't know about you guys, but I've got a lot of glaze left. So I've gone on the bottom of my pot. I've not done the inside yet, but I think I might come back to it. So the other thing is you can do all of this now. You can add some more later on if you want to. So I'm just going to talk about this outside bit, but if you want to come back and do the inside later, you're very, very welcome to.
Right.
So this bit is a good time to get rid of any floaty bits of feather that are kicking around, because we will start adding the white. So once you guys have finished sticking and you're double checking, waiting for paint to dry, we can just have a bit of a tidy up. You can wash your paintbrush out as well, because the next step is with a sponge. So you will have had a yellow sponge in your kit. I'm going to start with
Oh goodness, worrying about poor ickle goblins now, are you? Thinking of starting up some fun?
I'm just closing the lids on my coloured pots because I don't want them to dry out completely, because I may well come back and add one to the inside of my pot later on so that it's not just white, but I don't know if I'm going to or not, so I'm just going to pop them with the lids on just to the side because we don't need those for now. There's bits of feather everywhere and they're tickling my nose.
should do a bit of digging, you know. Disgrace.
How are we all getting on? Have we nearly finished our bases of our pots?
I am.
Can I just ask, do I have to make sure that there's no white left on my pot?
No, it doesn't matter. So if there's a little bit of white, that's no
Okay.
problem at all.
There's like quite a bit.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all right.
I'll mute myself again now.
So
you don't hear my bad language.
Is we're going to add lots of white over the top, so it's not a problem at all. We're going to make it stand out by adding the white glaze over the top of these. So you will see that it's really hard in this light tonight. It's terrible. You can see that there's a bit of shadowing in the background where the darker colour is, but we're aiming to kind of block out as much of that as possible when we start painting our white over the top. So don't worry if you've left white bits on there, it won't be a problem. So hopefully when you all come back to your lids, they will be dry. So you'll have a dry lid. The reason why we know it's dry is it's not shiny anymore. So your feathers will be stuck in, but it's not shiny anymore. If you still have really shiny bits on there, just gently smooth them out with your finger, then they can dry a little bit better. But it should be dry enough all the way over. And this is what we're aiming for before we can start the next stage. Okay, now I'll talk you through this bit first before you get started, because we're going to use a sponge. Now the sponges will hold an awful lot of glaze, which is why you've got 2 pots of white. You'll actually not use this much white on these, but the sponge just absorbs loads. We're not going to add any water to the white. It's ready to go just as it is. And again, if you load these sponges with water, we're just going to make a big sloppy mess all over the place. So what we need to do when we're painting with a sponge is dab and roll. So what you want to do is dab like this, and if you dab, 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 you're just going to dab. It will cause suction and it will pull your feather clean off of your pot. You don't want to wipe either, because if you wipe, these are rough enough that they'll just pull and drag that glaze that's underneath. So what we're going to do, and I'll show you with the first bit, try not to tip it all over the place. I'm just going to dab my sponge in the white, so I've got some on there, and I'm going to start on my lid, and I'm going to dab it and roll, and then dab and roll and dab and roll. Now you don't want to overwork the same area too many times, but this is what we're aiming for. You don't want too much. If it's really, really thick in a certain space, you can go on there and just smooth that out, but we're just going to dab and roll over the top. Now it's really tempting to want to rework and rework and rework where you can see that it's not covered completely, like this spot in here. I'm just going to leave it now, because that's now rehydrated the glaze that's underneath. If I keep working over here, I'm going to end up with it all mixing in together. So I'm going to get a bit more glaze on my sponge, and then off I go again. I'm just going to dab and roll, dab and roll. If you are too heavy-handed with this, we're going to lift these feathers up. So it's really important that you tap down and then move it across. So I'll try and do it on an angle so you can see. Like this, it's going to go down and just roll it across. And go like that. And this is the kind of finish that we're going to get on this first layer. It's going to look messy. It's not going to look very covered. It's just going to look a little bit bleh. But trust me, it will work. So you're just going to work your way around. Now I have got some very random bits of feather sticking up here. I've got crazy bits sticking up that weren't part of the lid, but they're on the side. Just work round those. If you end up squashing them down, it's not going to be a problem. But just go nice and gently all over, making sure that you touch down with your sponge and then roll it off. You want to touch down and roll it off. It will make a slight noise as the glaze is going onto it, but you're not going to be pulling off those feathers with your sponge. So really, really gently working our way around. You want it to have a spongy look. It doesn't need to be completely drenched and dripping in white. If there's too much white going on this layer, we're going to have some issues. Do work your way around this edge rim as well, especially those of you that have stuck feathers in, because the idea is now we're going to cover all of our colours that we put on before in 3 layers of white. If your sponge starts to pull up or kind of cause too much suction, just add some more glaze to it. And then once you've done one coat, we're literally just going to have to sit and wait for paint to dry. So you can pop it back down and put it to the side. Now we can come back to our bases as well now, because we've left them long enough. I've got a little bit of wet glaze on the bottom here where it's really shiny, you can see. It's actually quite a thick pool, so I'm just going to push that around to make that dry a bit quicker. But all the way around the edge, I've got a nice dry pot. So we're pretty much ready to go with this. Now we're aiming for 3 coats. So because we've got the base and the lid, we can swap and change between the 2. So I've got 1 coat on my lid now. I'm going to work on 1 coat on the pot base, and then I'll come back to my lid, because hopefully by the time I finish with this one will be dry enough, ready to go again. The rule of thumb is, as soon as there is no shine, you're good to go again. If you go before then, especially with this technique with the sponge, you're likely to pull off the previous layer of white and some of the colour. So just make sure you're waiting for it to dry. I know that's a little bit kind of twiddly thumb. You'll be sat there for a little bit waiting for them, but it will be worth it in the long run. So if you're happy with that technique and the kind of rolling of the sponge, by all means, start on the bottom part of your pot now as well.
You'll stay on that lid. Silly.
Put your fingers in the bottom like that.
Something. I've got it.
You don't want a thick layer though, Mum, because you've got to do 3.
You want it to be a bit like when you're rolling emulsion on a wall. Nice and thin, so it doesn't show the roller lines like each side of the roller.
See my rolling. Good.
So you're making that far more difficult than it needs to be. Are you dry, Pot? You're nearly dry.
Not loving the wet.
Just painted the computer by mistake. When you paint with a sponge and you are doing multiple layers, when we paint with a paintbrush, it goes on much more evenly. With a sponge, you will get a spongy texture. So when we talk about 3 layers of this, you want them to be quite thin layers, so you can still see my colours coming through. You can really still see the feathers. I've just got a thin layer of white coming in on there. So we do this 3 times, but it's not going to be the same thickness as if you were doing 3 layers of glaze with a paintbrush, because the sponge just applies it in that kind of slightly finer, more spongy way. So that's then mine covered. Now I'm going to have to put it on its head because I have painted the base. So I'm just going to drop that down. I'm actually going to prop it on my pair of scissors so that when I come to pick it up again, I can get my fingers underneath and I can still lift it there. So just as a little handy tip. Now my lid is still shiny. You can still see it on this down camera. It's not quite dry. Now obviously over the feathers, it's not going to dry completely anyway because of that stalk, but you do want to make the majority of it be non-shiny before we go on to the next stage. So I'm just going to sit here for a little bit and wait for that just to turn completely. And then I'll watch you guys do yours.
I know mine's really wet still, but you know, it is what it is, and it will be. Huh?
Got my hand stuck in the middle there.
Well, yes.
If that cream is just up inside.
Where's the scissors, please? When I sat it down on its bottom, it pushed the feather off.
Oh no.
Yes.
I'm convinced I need any more of that one.
Well, you did go a bit heavy.
Well, I'm sorry.
She told you not to.
If your white layer's really, really thick, Lynn, maybe just do 2.
Test it. She doesn't listen.
I did listen, it just came out.
There's always one, there's always one.
It's fine.
Is it worse to not listen, or is it worse to listen and not do it?
The second one.
So my lid is now not shiny anymore, so I'm going to go for round 2. So just
Yeah, I think mine will not be shiny tomorrow.
you might need to just sit and have a cup of tea or something, Lynn, waiting for
Yeah,
yours.
well, yes. Did the dog go in with James?
Look, she's in her bed.
Oh, there she
You
is.
kept kicking her, so she went
Well,
to
I'm
bed.
sorry, I didn't mean to kick her. She should have been under the table.
My husband's just crawled past me so that you guys didn't see him on
Not
the
in his boxes again.
camera. I thought it was the dog when I looked at Luke.
So the door. Oh, I was meant to shut the window.
So just make sure you go around the rim of your lid as well, especially if you stuck feathers on that bit. So then coat number 2 means that the feathers are starting to go. So I can see obviously the main stalks. Yeah. And then, but obviously you can see the colour on these bits, but you can see the main stalks, but you're losing the colour on everything else. That's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, I've already done that.
You're ahead of me then, Lynn.
Yeah. Oh dear. really do my base next.
Okay, so the base of mine has dried as well, so I'm going to head on round on that one too. So just not as a nerner, but just to let you know that if yours has lost its shine, just keep going. So we're aiming for 3 coats on everything. 2 for you, Lynn.
Well, my base is okay.
Oh, good. It was just your lid.
Yeah, went a bit.
She didn't listen.
Well, I did, but it just didn't work. Okay. Ooh.
I was really cold today, so I put the heating on. So I'm thinking that's why mine's drying so quickly. I know it's still August, but I was freezing.
How much of the white are we aiming to use on this bit?
So I've just done my second coat and I have got that much left in my first pot. But my sponge is really heavy now. It's like it's top heavy. It's definitely holding more. So I'm sure if I squeeze this, it would come out.
Nobody else is talking today.
It's all super silent.
Oh.
She's got mute.
Huh?
I've either got deaf or she's on mute.
She's just not saying anything.
I saw her lips move.
Is it beyond me? Oh dear. That doesn't sound very healthy.
Oh,
There's no dropping the bowls.
no, dropping the balls.
How you doing, Georgia?
Good. I'm just waiting for my base to dry.
Is that second coat?
No, first one's still some shiny bits.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Put the paint out with a tiny pot and a big sponge.
Well, yes. Ooh. Music. Still, if this turns out really bad, I can give it to Jean for Christmas.
Jean.
It really won't turn out badly. These are amazing. We've seen people do them in all sorts of ways. The only time we had them turn out really badly at one point was we had a very dodgy batch of white glaze that was actually clear glaze. And
Oh,
we had a couple of people do it in the studio, having been on the techniques workshop, and theirs did not work. But that was a glaze issue that was then sorted and they repainted. So we know that your glaze is not a dodgy batch, so it will be perfect.
well, it's just me then.
Okay, so I've just put my third coat on my lid. So not that you have to be keeping up, but just to let you know that's the bit that I'm at. My base is not quite ready to go yet. We're not far off.
I haven't done this bit. But it's really blue.
Oh,
But there is a grip there, just use that.
stay, you little devil. That's not actually watching.
Interesting to see.
As I say, if I don't like it, I'll give it to Jean for Christmas.
Lights are up there by the pig.
It's cool.
Okay, so my third coat is on, and now you're just going to wait for that to dry. The more layers we add, the longer it's going to take to dry in between. So once your third coat is on, you do need to sit and wait for it to lose its shine. But just before it goes completely, we're going to start peeling our feathers off. So those of you that aren't at the same stage as me, don't worry, keep going. But there will be a point where I'll just get you to kind of see what I'm up to again. I'm just keeping an eye on my lid, so the base is really wet still, but the lid is just losing its shine. So whereas before we were waiting for the shine to go completely, this time we're waiting for it to just lose its shine, and then we can start peeling those feathers away. But you don't want to go too soon, because then you can sometimes see that the white bleeds back into those gaps again. So it's
That's the drink.
at the right time.
Oh, that was silly.
That's all right. Did I tell you? Dad walked into the conservatory and there's Penny walking across with one of my gnomes.
It's
It's
gonna
like
be what?
my gnomes. My two tea light
Oh,
gnomes.
oh gosh.
She picked one up and was carrying it around. Don't think you're meant to have that.
Oh no, but it's a penny light, so.
Well, he said, oh, you're not meant to have that. Should we put it back? She did. She was just interested.
Can't say very much.
No. Oh. It's raining. Oh, I can see your terrarium at the back. Not terrarium. Animal house.
My snake tanks.
Your snake tank.
So this is Brian at the bottom here. He's our ball python, and then we've got Copper at the top, who's our corn snake.
Oh.
She likes to hide, so she's actually, even though she's really high up and not many people can see her, she is the happiest up there than she has ever been in the 4 years we've had her.
Oh.
Active and busy, and yeah, totally loving life because nobody can peer in and see her.
Oh, bless. Oh.
So my lid now looks like this. I don't know if I'm on the front one or the upper one. Which one? So there is just a little bit of sheen left. There's really not much. And that's the point. So if you touched it, it would be a little bit tacky, but you want to then start peeling off your feathers. So you will just get the end and just gently pull back and peel your feather away. And this should be what you have underneath. So you can't see the colour coming back in, but bear in mind that oh, that was a good one. That the colours will really pop once they've been fired. So just be aware of that. These are my funny little ones that were hanging over the edge. I've got my white one in there. And red one coming in at the side.
I'm not at that stage.
You get the real wow effect when you do it yourself, but these are awesome. I absolutely love this. Now, I do have a lot of kind of tassely, bristly bits. Don't worry too much about little bits of them, but if you've got kind of big chunks, just pick them out, because the less we put through the kiln, the better, but it's not the end of the world and it won't ruin the piece when it's done. The reason why I'm going to peel these ones off, I don't know if you can see, there's actually quite a lot there coming around the edge that is part of the design. So I just want to pull those back. So I'm just going to grab the tufty bits at the top and just peel them back. I'll just spend a bit of time picking those off. Now, like I said before, around this inner rim, like where the ridge is, on mine looks like a real mess. So I've got glaze coming in underneath, it's a real mess. Now either you can rinse out your sponge in water and you can clean that back. So just really, really wrung out sponge and you can wipe it back. Or if you want to, you can spend a bit of time adding some more feathers inside. You can paint that a solid colour. You should have plenty of glaze left. I've got lots still in my pots. So you'll be able to add more feathers if you want to. You can do that once this is completely dried. So once this is bone dry this side, so maybe tomorrow or some point over the weekend, whenever you want to do it, you can flip these on their head and then do the same technique but inside. So slap your paint around, stick your feathers, 3 coats of white, peel them off, and you'll have the inside matching the outside. So it's entirely up to you how you do it, but just remember that any mess, any kind of extra bit like this coming in here, they will show when they're fired. So it's this one I actually cleaned off beforehand, so it was nice. It's nice and clean, but inside the pot I left all of that in there, and so it's now glazed in forevermore, so it will be there always. The same on this upper rim. It's not completely spotless all the way around. So just have a little think about how you want this to look when it's fired. I left the base nice and clean on this one. Obviously on this one I've added a feather, so it's going to look like a very different pot. But anywhere that you don't want colour, just make sure you clean it back. And if you're not happy with it, you can always add more colour just to kind of finish it off. So even with this edge, if you didn't want to add feathers, but you wanted this kind of upper rim to have a colour, you can just tap your paintbrush around this rim with one of your colours or a combination of them just to mix that in. But yes, that is basically your technique in a nutshell. So spend a bit of time doing it. Hopefully when you guys peel, you will enjoy it as much as I do. I really love picking these off. And the detail on that big feather there is quite something. It's really, really pretty how it's. Again, courtesy of my heating kicking out at 22 degrees because I'm freezing. My base is now nice and dry as well. So yeah, mine's just speeding on ahead. So I'm just going to grab the end and I'm just going to peel back, and then you get this gorgeous feather that's left there. I added quite a lot of white, the lighter colour to this one, but when that's fired, it will really, really stand out. You might be tempted to rub where there are kind of little flaky bits of white. The best thing to do is to leave them be at the moment. So it's really tempting just to go, oh, get rid of those. But actually, as they're drying, I don't know if you can see this little bit here. I've got some here, and they're really, really fine. But if I can leave those there when they're fired, that will add to the feather rather than brushing over it, and you'll end up just with your base colour on show. So try not to pick too much at these. Perfecting it when they're fired, it will look amazing if you can leave those bits on.
Oh, lucky you've got plastic tablecloth.
Right, so you're a messy old bugger.
Rude.
And you?
Before I get any more in there.
Is anyone else at the peeling off stage yet?
Yeah, sponge.
Oh, yeah, you can do.
Dries, yes.
Feathery bits in here, so I'm just going to pick them out because actually they're very much part of the design, those ones when they're like that. These funny little fluffy bits aren't going to do anything. Obviously you can peel them off if you want to, but they will all burn away. They're no different to when we leave some of our paintbrush bristles in our pieces before we fire them. They're not going to be detrimental to the piece.
Pot is looking better than mine.
I've got one more to go, which is just
I said my pot is looking better than mine.
there we go. Pick up a little bit. And then that is mine done. Now I might well come back to this tomorrow and do something on the inside. I think I'm probably just going to leave it now and then rethink it in the morning and see if I want to add any more. I will be neatening up this edge because I have got a lot of messy green coming in around here, and I like it to be a bit neater than that, but that's just personal choice. But yeah,
I am in a minute. It's not very dry yet.
leave this drying up on its, you know, kind of the wrong way round, because if you go this way, this base bit's going to take ages to dry. And then the same with your lid.
Very dry.
Out. So if you have got a safe,
I would start.
right? You want to let them dry completely overnight, and then you can wrap them back up in your tissue paper, pop them back in your bags, and then bring them down to the studio the next time we're open, or whenever it works for you. These can remain unfired for a very long time. It's not going to do them any harm at all. Don't touch them lots. Don't kind of make, you know, don't have them moving lots, because this does dry really chalky. So the more you scuff against them, the more the glaze will come off. But yes, these are done. They're done and ready to be fired. When they do come back to me, if they've not got the paperwork on the bag still, that's fine. But if you just make sure your name and telephone number is on the bag, really appreciate it, so that when they're fired, I can match them to you and let you know that they're ready to come and pick up.